Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving into a massive, fundamental shift in software architecture. And I don't use the word massive lightly here. We're talking about a shift so profound, it might completely redefine what it actually means to go online. We are moving rapidly away from the traditional web as we know it, and we're entering a totally new era of user interaction. It's an era driven entirely by how software systems communicate with artificial intelligence. So that brings us to a pretty bold question. Are we actually witnessing the end of the web browser? Well, according to a recent deep dive by the creators of the MCP app specification, the answer might actually be yes. They proposed a timeline where within just the next 2 years, traditional websites, web browsers, and those endless, stressful rows of open tabs we all have might be completely replaced by smart, personal AI assistants. But, to understand how we get from the web we use today to that futuristic state, we really have to look at a critical limitation in how current AI platforms operate right now. I'm sure you've experienced this. Currently, most AI interactions just result in a frustrating wall of text. If you ask a chat model to fetch data from a platform like Shopify or Expedia today, you usually just get this massive text dump back. It's read-only, it's totally overwhelming, and crucially for companies, there's zero brand identity. Because of this, companies have actually been actively blocking their data from models to avoid being reduced to just an anonymous wall of text. But imagine if, instead of text, an AI could send back an interactive piece of software. You'd have clickable actions, rich visual data, and full brand recognition, all sitting directly within your chat window.
And that is exactly where an MCP app comes in. MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, and this app concept is an official extension of the standard originally created by Anthropic and OpenAI. It completely changes the dynamic. Instead of a service returning raw text to an AI, it securely passes back a fully interactive, sandboxed user interface resource. You can basically think of it as passing an actual mini website directly over the chat window. It's a functional block of UI that looks exactly the way the brand designed it, but it lives entirely inside your AI assistant.
Now, you might be wondering if this is just some fringe experiment. It's definitely not. The explosive industry adoption here is moving incredibly fast. Since it was built in partnership with Anthropic and OpenAI, it is already supported natively by major hosts. We're talking Claude, ChatGPT, VS Code, and Cursor. In fact, early iterations of this technology have already been deployed. Millions of Shopify stores have successfully passed user interfaces directly to client right through chat. And companies like Hugging Face and PostHog are rapidly adopting it too. This architecture is quickly solidifying as the absolute global standard for UI inside chat applications. So, how does this bidirectional flow actually work under the hood? Let's break it down step by step. Step 1, you just prompt your assistant like normal. Step 2, the AI host sends a tool call over to a remote server, like a travel application, for example. Step 3 is where the real paradigm shift happens. Instead of returning text, that server returns a UI resource, like HTML. Step 4, your AI host takes that and renders the UI securely in a sandbox right there on your screen. And finally, step 5, it becomes fully interactive. You click a button, and the flow goes bidirectional. The interface is continuously talking back and forth with the system. This leads to a fundamental departure from how the normal web works. As the creators put it, the control is in the hands of the host, and everything stays in context. Think about it. If you click a button on a traditional website, that action goes directly to a company's backend server. Your AI has absolutely no idea you just did that. But with an MCP app, your interactions route back through the AI host first. If you favorite a song in a Spotify MCP app inside your chat, the AI actually facilitates that action. An hour later, you can casually ask the AI what song you just favorited, and it knows. The context is entirely preserved. Of course, not all interfaces are created equal, and these UIs are actually generated across a spectrum of control. On one end, we have predefined UI. This is fully controlled by the third-party app. Think of Airbnb wanting to preserve its exact iconic booking interface. This handles roughly 80% of specific branded use cases. Then, right in the middle sits declarative UI. Here, the app just declares the core structure it needs, but the host renders it so it perfectly matches the aesthetic of your specific chat window. And finally, we have generative UI. This is almost like magic, where an AI model generates a custom, functional user interface instantly, right out of thin air, tailored to a highly specific task you just asked for. So, what does this all mean for the internet as a whole? Well, it signals the rise of what the creators are calling the new web. We are officially moving away from monolithic websites where you have to navigate through massive, bloated dashboards just to find one single feature. Instead, applications are being decomposed into atomic Lego blocks of user interface. Your personal assistant simply curates and snaps together the specific UI blocks you need exactly when you need them. You basically bypass the traditional web browser entirely. Let's put this Lego block concept into a real-world scenario. Imagine you're planning an anniversary trip. In the old web, you'd easily have 5 tabs open, manually copying and pasting context between all of them. But in the new web, you just speak to your assistant. First, it pulls up a small interactive chunk of your Google Calendar to check your dates. Next, it pulls a specific map chunk directly from Booking.com. And because your AI actually knows you personally, it knows you prefer nature over the city, so it pre-filters that map for cabins. Finally, it pulls a recognizable chunk of Amazon so you can buy a gift. All of these completely disparate, branded services interact seamlessly within one single chat interface. It's brilliant. Now, for these atomic blocks to communicate back to the AI smoothly, developers really have to adopt a new interaction mindset. It's all based on a spectrum of control. First, there's notification. This provides the highest control for the app. The UI simply informs the AI that an action occurred, like a user adding an item to a cart, and the app's backend handles it. Then you have a tool call, which offers medium control. This is where the UI asks the AI to execute a specific background tool. And lastly, prompt represents the lowest control for the app. The UI literally just passes a text string back to the AI, prompting it to run a command and figure out the outcome itself. It is a completely new philosophy for building software flows. And developers are absolutely rushing to adopt this new philosophy. Why? Because of the sheer scale of the opportunity. Right now, there are up to 1 billion weekly users interacting with AI chat platforms globally. 1 billion. That is an audience size that is virtually unprecedented for a brand new software paradigm. It completely changes the calculus for where companies should be investing their engineering resources today. To put that billion users into perspective, that is 160 times the potential audience that developers had access to when the original iPhone App Store launched. Think about that for a second. If you build an MCP app today, you write the code once and suddenly it can run instantly inside ChatGPT, inside Claude, inside VS Code, and anywhere else the protocol is supported. You reach a massive global audience instantly, and those users never even need to download an application or type a URL into a browser. And looking at the roadmap, this protocol is evolving incredibly fast. They are actively building out reusable views so that super heavy software like 3D modeling tools from Autodesk can render efficiently without constantly reloading inside the chat. Even more profoundly, they are establishing ways for the AI models themselves to natively click buttons and fill out forms within these interfaces completely on your behalf. There is also a huge focus on interoperability with other emerging protocols right now, all driving toward the ultimate goal of establishing a single, unified global standard for UI inside chat. Now, I know the idea of traditional websites fading away sounds a bit intimidating, right? But the developers frame it a lot differently. They call this a once-in-a-20 years opportunity to think about your apps again. This architectural shift really isn't a threat to software developers or established businesses. It is arguably the biggest blank canvas opportunity since the launch of the smartphone. It gives everyone a chance to rethink the core user experience, strip away years and years of legacy bloat, and focus entirely on atomic, intelligent, and highly contextual interactions. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative question to end on. How will you rebuild for the new web? Are you going to cling to monolithic dashboards, or are you going to start decomposing your ideas into smart, interactive blocks? The architectural shift is happening right now. The protocols are being standardized as we speak, and the user base is already massive. I highly encourage you to dive deeper into the open source MCP specification to see exactly how it might apply to your own work. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep building, and I will see you next time.